Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Dr. Abdul Rehman, your course instructor for the subject Human Physiology, having a course code MLT-111. Today, we will discuss Part B of lecture number 3, that is Respiratory System. Lecture outlines. Today, we will discuss the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide in blood and body fluid, because blood contains red blood cells that contain proteins hemoglobin, which is responsible for transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. The oxygen has been transported from heart to the cells, while in return carbon dioxide has been bring back from tissues to the lung for clarification. Hemoglobin is made up of 4 symmetrical subunits and 4 heme groups. Iron associated with heme binds with oxygen and carbon dioxide. After this, we will discuss the regulation and control of respiration. In the brain, there is a region called medulla oblongata, which is the primary respiratory control center. Its main function is to send signal to the respiratory muscles that control respiration, and as a result, breathing will take place. The ventral respiratory group present in the medulla oblongata stimulates expiratory movements. After this, we will discuss the specific pulmonary abnormalities. Pulmonary diseases mostly affect lung and other part of the respiratory system. These diseases may be caused by microbial infection, by smoking tobacco, or by breathing in second-hand tobacco smoke, radon, asbestos, or other form of air pollution. Let's start our today lecture, transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide in blood and body fluid. In the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide, the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide play a vital role. However, oxygen is transported in combination with hemoglobin to the tissue through blood. The hemoglobin pigment present in the blood gets attached to oxygen molecule that are obtained from breathing and thus forms oxyhemoglobin. This oxygenated blood is then distributed to all parts of the body from the heart, while carbon dioxide also combines with chemical substances in blood that increases its transport to the lung. The deoxygenated blood gives carbon dioxide to the lung alveoli and takes oxygen in return. Carbon dioxide is carried physically dissolved in the blood, chemically combined to blood protein as carboamino compounds and as bicarbonate, while oxygen is transported both physically dissolved in blood and chemically combined to the hemoglobin in the erythrocytes. For the transport of oxygen in blood, different steps are involved, and these are diffusion of oxygen from alveoli into the pulmonary blood. The partial pressure of gaseous oxygen in alveoli is 104 mm Hg, while the partial pressure of oxygen in blood entering capillary is 40 mm Hg. So this pressure differences cause diffusion of the oxygen from alveoli into the pulmonary blood, because diffusion is the phenomena that molecules moves from higher concentration towards the lower concentration. So in the first step, oxygen from alveoli enter into the pulmonary blood. While in exercise, there is a increase in the demand of oxygen round about 20 times than the normal, and this demand of oxygen is met by diffusing capacity of for oxygen increases threefold during exercise. More and more blood capillaries and alveoli become dilated. The next step is transport of oxygen in arterial blood. As lungs are the main respiratory organ that facilitate the exchange of gases with atmospheric air. So about 98% of the blood that comes from lung has a partial pressure of about 104 mm Hg, while the remaining 2% of the blood comes from bronchial vessel has a partial pressure of oxygen of about 40 mm Hg. So when these two bloods come from lung into the left atrium of the heart, there they give a final partial pressure of about 95 mm Hg. This blood has been pumped into the systemic circulation, including blood capillaries and arteries as oxygenated blood. After this, oxygen has been diffused from blood capillaries into the interstitial fluid on the basis of differences in their partial pressure. That is, the partial pressure of oxygen in interstitial fluid is 40 mm Hg, while the partial pressure of oxygen in blood capillary is 95 mm Hg. So pressure differences allow the diffusion of oxygen from blood capillaries into the interstitial fluid. The fourth and last step involved in the transport of oxygen in blood and body fluid is diffusion of oxygen from interstitial spaces into the cell. The partial pressure of oxygen in interstitial spaces is approximately 23 mm Hg, while its pressure is about 1 to 3 mm Hg in the cell. So these huge differences in the partial pressure allow the diffusion of oxygen from interstitial spaces into the cell. While there is also another mechanism used for the transport of carbon dioxide in blood and body fluid, because carbon dioxide has been transported in different forms. About 7% of the carbon dioxide has been transported in diffuse form through hemoglobin, 23% has been transported in carboamino compound form, while 70% of carbon dioxide has been transported as bicarbonate ion. Again, different steps are involved in their transport. The first one is diffusion of carbon dioxide from cells into the interstitial fluid. As in the cell, metabolic reaction will take place where oxygen oxidizes the complex organic compound and produce carbon dioxide along with water and ATPs. That's why in the cells after metabolic reaction the concentration of carbon dioxide is high. That's why the partial pressure of carbon dioxide inside the cell is 46 millimeter Hg, while the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in interstitial fluid is 45 millimeter Hg. So this pressure difference of 1 millimeter Hg allow the diffusion of carbon dioxide from cells into the interstitial fluid. The next step is diffusion of carbon dioxide from interstitial fluid into the blood capillaries. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide in interstitial fluid is 45 millimeter Hg, while in blood capillaries the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40 millimeter Hg. So pressure difference of 5 millimeter Hg allow the diffusion of carbon dioxide from interstitial fluid into the blood capillaries. The third step that is being involved in the transport of carbon dioxide is diffusion of carbon dioxide from pulmonary blood into lung alveoli. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide in venous blood that comes from the tissues has about 45 millimeter Hg, while in the lung the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40 millimeter Hg. So pressure differences allow the diffusion of carbon dioxide from pulmonary blood into the lung alveoli. And from the lung alveoli, this carbon dioxide has been exchanged with the atmospheric air. Forms of carbon dioxide transported in blood, as we discussed earlier, that about 7% of carbon dioxide has been transported as dissolved carbon dioxide, while 23% of carbon dioxide has been transported in combination with amino group of the blood protein in order to form carbamino compounds, while major portion of the carbon dioxide has been transported as bicarbonate ions, and that is about 70%. This transport comprises 2.2 ml of carbon dioxide per 100 ml of blood. During respiration, there is a change in electric neutrality, especially in the red blood cells, when carbon dioxide has been diffused in the form of bicarbonate ion. So to maintain electric neutrality, chloride has been diffused from plasma into the red blood cells. This diffusion of chloride from plasma into the RBCs to maintain electric neutrality is called as chloride shift. Here you can see about 70% of carbon dioxide has been transported as bicarbonate ion, and these bicarbonate ions are formed within RBCs, especially when carbon dioxide diffuses from body tissue into the blood capillaries, where it combines with water molecule within RBCs and produce an intermediate product. This intermediate product has been then converted into bicarbonate ion, and these bicarbonate ions are then released into the plasma. So from their diffusion, there a change in electric neutrality will take place within RBCs. So to maintain normal electric neutrality and function of the RBCs, an equal amount of chloride has been diffused from plasma into the RBCs. This is being called as chloride shift. After chloride shift, the next is regulation and control of respiration. For control of respiration, there is a center in the brain called as respiratory center. This center regulates and controls all the events of respiration, and it has four major parts. Dorsal respiratory group, responsible for inspiration. Pneumotaxic center, that generate inhibitory signals to the dorsal respiratory group so that the initiation of inspiratory signals become stopped. Ventral respiratory group that is responsible for expiration, however, some extent of inspiration. And the fourth one is hypnostic center that actually stop the inhibitory signals produced by pneumotaxic center. Dorsal respiratory group. Dorsal respiratory group is composed of neurons that initiate signals called as inspiratory action potential or inspiratory ramp signal. So during respiration, the magnitude of ramp signal is very weak, but it increases with time for about 2 seconds and then abruptly cease in the next 3 seconds and begin again. So by this way, they maintain the contraction of the lung muscles, and as a result, the inspiration process continues in a regular fashion. Pneumotaxic center. It is a small port has been located in the top of the respiratory center, and it initiates inhibitory signals to stop the initiation of REM signals. It usually controls the depth of respiration and also increase heart rate for about 30 to 40 breaths per minute. Ventral respiratory group. The ventral respiratory group is responsible for expiration. It is located adjacent to the dorsal respiratory group, and it also facilitates inspiration process up to some extent. But mostly it sends signals to the abdominal muscles during expiration. Hypnostic center. Hypnostic center control the depth of respiration by inhibiting the inhibitory signals came from pneumotaxic center to the dorsal respiratory group. So in this way, they increase the depth, the rate of respiration and also control depth of respiration. After this, the next is specific pulmonary abnormalities. Here you can see there are two specific pulmonary abnormalities. The first one is emphysema, where the size of the lung alveoli become increased either due to dilation or some microbial infection that destroy their walls. As a result, a person can feel difficulty in breathing, and if this condition persists for a longer period of time, then it will be responsible for death. Pneumonia. Pneumonia is a clinical condition of lung caused by bacteria or viruses in which some or all of the alveoli are filled with fluid and blood cells, and it results in two pulmonary abnormalities: reduction in total available surface area of the respiratory membrane and decrease the rate of perfusion for cases. The third pulmonary abnormality is asthma, spastic condition of bronchial smooth muscle causing extreme difficulty in breathing. Here you can see this is the normal airway, and during asthma the normal airway has been filled with different fluid particles, etc. So as a result, a person can feel difficulty in breathing. Usually it causes hypersensitivity of the bronchioles to foreign substances. So allergic reaction may develop after exposure to these foreign substances, and allergic person has tendency to form large amount of IgE antibodies. So upon exposure to antigen, IgE antibodies react with it and mast cells granules rupture, releasing substances which cause bronchospasm. With this, there is the end of our today lecture. Thank you so much.